another dumb thing that California has done, except this time it concerns prisons. The California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation has decided that it will now house inmates based on their gender identity rather than their sex assigned at birth. Oh, here we go. The new law Newsom signed Saturday requires officers to ask inmates privately during the intake process if they identify as transgender, non-binary, or intersex. Then inmates can request to be placed in a facility that houses either men or women. I'm sorry, what? The new California law says an inmate's request cannot be denied based solely on a prisoner's anatomy, sexual orientation, or another factor that may be present among other inmates at any given facility. So you're telling me that a person with their dingle-dangles can be transferred to a women's prison because they want to be? Now, while some of this might seem very strange to some of you, this conversation has actually been going on for a very long time. And states all around the world have already instituted laws and changes to the prison systems in order to accommodate all of this. For example, Connecticut was the first US state to house inmates based on their gender identity rather than their sex. Even last year, I made a YouTube video about a Swedish man who murdered and dismembered his girlfriend, was put in a men's prison, then decided he was transgender and transferred to a female facility. And now I'm pretty sure he's actually out. So there's that too. Because who cares about public safety, am I right? And while the patently insane LGBT plus cult has probably decided that all of this is a great idea and will ultimately help transgender inmates, what they fail to see is how it has and will result in abuse, and how it has and will result in considerably more harm. Specifically to women and us, the taxpayer, who will inevitably come to fund the transgender reassignment surgery for inmates, as we've seen in the past. One piece of information from the UK in 2018 said that 1 in 50 inmates identifies as transgender in order to secure prison perks. Other sources say males identify as women in order to gain access to female prisons. Because, and no surprises here, the majority of people identifying as transgender in prison are men identifying as women. And again, while the LGBT plus camp argues that transgender inmates are victimized at a much higher rate than the regular prison population, again, they fail to realize what housing biological men with biological women means for women's safety. When it comes to this, let me quote myself. Nobody has yet demonstrated how and if transgender women pose less of a risk to biological female inmates and staff than any other regular biological male criminal. It's probably fair to assume that the majority of people would oppose putting biological male offenders in with biological female offenders. So I guess in this context, it raises the question of why this is appropriate. Does being transgender suddenly change the danger factor to female inmates? In the end, I patently don't understand why transgender inmates deserve any kind of preferential treatment as it is. But more than that, I personally believe that this is a terrible idea and will ultimately result in terrible, terrible, terrible consequences, especially for women, the main group of people that Democrats love to say that they're trying to protect.